This episode brought to you by TAUMMHOMS, which is a natural sleep and sound healing portal helping people globally to get to sleep faster and stay asleep longer through TAUMMHOMS.com. That's www.TAUMMHOMS.com.
It's My Right Stuff with your host, Grammy Award-winning record producer and inventor, Toby Wright. My Right Stuff is brought to you by TAUMMHOMS, a natural sleep and sound healing portal available globally at www.taumms.com. That's www.taummmhoms.com. And I'm your announcer, Grinnin' Barrett. Here's Toby.
Hey, I'm Lord Toby Wright, and this is My Right Stuff News. Well, welcome to the My Right Stuff Good News Network. Let's kick things off with some music news. Cowboy Junkie's Songs of the Recollection is out now. The brand new album features covers of well-known songs from artists including David Bowie, Graham Parsons, The Rolling Stones, Neil Young, Gordon Lightfoot, Bob Dylan, and The Cure. Well, Killing Joke released Lord of the Chaos EP. This is the London post-punkers' first new material in 7 years, following their most recent album 2015's Pylon. Killing Joke are also gearing up to head out on their Honor the Fire tour this spring, marking their first UK tour in over 3 years. Grammy-winning artist Maren Morris releases her third album titled Humble Quest. Maren began writing the songs on Humble Quest in the beginning of the pandemic as a series of major life-changing events unfolded. New motherhood, an upended career, and the death of a beloved friend. How sad. Well, Placebo have unveiled their long-awaited 8th studio album, Never Let Me Go. It's been 9 years since their last release, and Brian Molko says that the album is about big problems, climate change, social inequality, and state surveillance. And he says, for me, it's about not existing in the problem and trying to live in the solution. I wanted to express something visceral, something very human. I just hope that other people will understand it and that will move them, he said. Quite a great statement. On over to film and TV news. Halo is out on Paramount Plus. Once hailed as a potential Game of Thrones type TV event for Showtime, this adaptation of the mammoth video game franchise finally makes its way to streaming. Pablo Schreiber takes up the mantle of Master Chief, a cybernetically enhanced super soldier who defends humanity from the alien covenant in the 26th century. The series has already been renewed for a second season. The Girl from Plainville is now on Hulu, a dramatization of the events depicted in the 2019 HBO documentary I Love You, Now Die. This 8-episode series stars Ellie Fanning as Michelle Carter, a teenager arrested after her alleged abusive behavior was thought to have led to the suicide of an 18-year-old in a coastal Massachusetts town. Moon Knight is out this coming week. The miniseries will be streaming on Disney+. It's based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name, and it's intended to be the 6th television series in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Well, The Lost City hits theaters today. Brilliant but reclusive author Loretta Sage, played by Sandra Bullock, has spent her career writing about exotic places in her popular romance adventure novels featuring handsome cover model Alan, played by Channing Tatum, who has dedicated his life to embodying the hero character Dash. While on tour promoting her new book with Alan, Loretta is kidnapped by an eccentric billionaire, played by Daniel Radcliffe, who hopes that she can lead him to the ancient lost city's treasure from her latest stories. And wanting to prove that he can be a hero in real life and not just on the pages of her books, Alan sets off to rescue her. Thrust into an epic jungle adventure, the unlikely pair will need to work together to survive the elements and find the ancient treasure before it's lost forever. Well, The Duke is set in 1961 when Kempton Bunton, a 60-year-old taxi driver, stole Goya's portrait of the Duke of Wellington from the National Gallery in London. It was the first, and remains the only, theft in the gallery's history. Kempton sent ransom notes saying that he would return the painting on condition that the government agreed to provide television for free to the elderly. What happened next became the stuff of legend. Only 50 years later did the full story emerge, a startling revelation of how a good man set out to change the world and in so doing saved his son and his marriage. Let's go on over to the world of sports. Well, it's lights out. Formula One is back, baby. Last weekend, the first race of the season took place in Bahrain. We got to see the new updated cars, and the race did not disappoint. Ferrari ruled that race. Charles Leclerc raced back and forth with Max Verstappen, whose Red Bull finally gave out with only a few laps left. Leclerc took the victory, while his Ferrari teammate Carlos Sainz took second, and Lewis Hamilton was third. Well, the big surprise was Kevin Magnussen in his return to F1 with a huge fifth place for the Team Haas. This weekend is the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, which takes place at the brand new Jeddah Corniche circuit. Well, let's see if Red Bull can fix their engine issues and be competitive this week. Good luck to all. We're rooting for you. Well, of course, March Madness is here, and tonight is the final night of the Sweet 16 in the Men's NCAA Basketball Championship. Tomorrow and Sunday is the Elite Eight games, and the Final Four and Championship Final is next week. We'll keep you up to date, but I'm sure you're going to check it out. Let's go on over to Gear and Tech. Well, you might think that you have your mobile recording requirements covered by your phone, but one look at the new Tascam Portacapture X8 might be enough to convince you otherwise. First impressions are that it's a bit of a beast, offering 192 kilohertz multi-track recording and a multitude of features that make it suitable for capturing everything from music to podcasts, interviews, and vlogs. There are 6 setup modes, each of which immediately optimizes the X8 for a specific recording situation. Settings are made on the 3.5-inch color touchscreen, which promises to make operation a breeze. A couple of 14.6 millimeter diameter condenser microphones are built into the X8, supported by Tascam's own HDDA preamps. The detachable mic mechanism is said to make it easy to set the available AB and XY mic patterns. As well as the mics, there are 4 XLR and quarter-inch inputs that can capture mic and line-level signals, along with the aux-in, line-out, and camera in-and-out connections. And thanks to the built-in DSP, you also get a compressor, a limiter, low-cut filter, noise gate, reverb, and auto gain control, while wireless control can be enabled by downloading the dedicated app and using the optional Bluetooth dongle. Multi-track recording capability extends to 8 tracks, specifically 6 tracks plus 2 mix. And as well as operating standalone, the X8 can also function as an 8-in, 2-out USB Type-C audio interface. You can record on SD cards up to 512 gigabytes. The Portacapture X8 is available now and priced at $499. You can find Tascam here. Well, that's all the news that's making the news this week, March 25th, 2022. Now, over to you, Lord Rage.
Oh, hey, thank you, Toby.
Welcome back to My Right Stuff, which is a film, TV, sports, music, adventure, and inspirational lifestyle podcast. I'm your host, Lord Toby Rage Wright, and today we have a very talented and amazing artist. His name is Stephen Mcswain. If you're unaware of this man, let me give you the 411. He and I became friends during my production of Korn's Follow the Leader. He brought in an amazing handcrafted guitar, one of a kind. I was really amazed. Never seen anything like it. We'll meet him soon, but before we do, a little business. Be sure to click on our show notes below to follow our link tree for a full list of all the channels we stream on, as well as all of our sites and social media platforms. If you'd like to donate to My Right Stuff, please follow our support link. Every single dollar helps support My Right Stuff crew who make all of this possible. And of course, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as the podcast channel of your choice, so you never, ever miss a single episode. And after this episode, please head on over to myrightstuff.com, click on the store tab to pick up some snazzy merch for those bodies, which would, make an ideal present for your nearest and dearest, and so get them now. Well, before we get started on today's episode, I'd like to introduce my co-host, the man who's also custom built and doesn't fret or sweat, just like these guitars, my distinguished co-host, Sir Gareth Dighton. Hey, Gareth, how are you today?
Hey, Toby, my main man. How's things with you?
Oh, pretty darn good. And I understand you have some new music for us to check out today.
I do indeed. There's 3 releases I wanted to tell you about today. The first one is by a recording artist from the South Wales Valleys called Mahoots. Trying something a little bit different. Before now, he's been a bit of an acoustic kind of troubadour, singer-songwriter. He's still doing the storytelling, which is superb, but musically, it sounds a bit like LCD Sound System having a bar fight with a fall. It sounds absolutely incredible. And that EP is going to be called Get Ready to Be Born and is due for release very soon, I believe. I've also been listening to the new Ruby release, which is a complete reworking of the first album, Saltpeter, called Saltpeter 25. Every single track on the album has been completely kind of just remade from scratch. It sounds absolutely incredible. It's really, really good. And I've also been listening to the new self-titled Zeal and Ardor's third proper studio album called Zeal and Ardor, which is actually due for release anytime soon. And every track on that album is an absolute barnstorming genius. It's very, very highly kind of recommended.
That's sweet, because I really love that band.
They're
really
they're
good.
very, very
really
good. They are very
cool.
good.
I'm going to have to check them all out.
Please do. Please do. Let me know. Let me actually know what you think as well, dude.
I certainly will, because, you turn me on to some killer music. So
Thank you very much.
Absolutely will. And, well, Gareth, I'd like to introduce you to our talented and very interesting guest who will help us hit all the right notes and won't string us along.
Nice.
Bad jokes.
Nice.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, please give a nice, warm welcome to Mr. Stephen Mcswain. Hey, Stephen, how are you today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's been a little while since we've seen each other.
It's been many, many years, which is crazy, and I'm glad that we've reconnected, my friend.
You and I both. Absolutely. Well, Stephen, I'd like to introduce you to my co-host, Sir Gareth Dighton.
How you doing, Gareth?
Hello, Stephen. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. Nice to meet you.
Very well, thank you. It's really, really good to meet you. I'm really, really kind of intrigued by like sort of the actual guitar shop and stuff. So I'm really kind of interested in this.
All right. Well, I'll give you the dog and pony show here in a little bit.
Sounds good. Well, we like to start kind of near the beginning. And here at My Right Stuff, we like to, just get it going. So did you grow up in a musical household?
Absolutely. That was, as far back as I can remember, there was always music playing. My father, big, deep, bassy baritone voice, and he was always singing. And so we were kind of swept into that, which was super fun. And it's funny because he's a big, country music fan. And so he was always playing country music in the car, which that's probably my least favorite style of music these days as far as to perform myself. I became, of course, you always go the opposite way of your parents. So, but we always had music playing. We're always, big. My dad was one of 12 kids. And so that whole side is for the most part, pretty musical. I had an uncle who was a bluegrass picker. And my very first guitar was his old 1943 Martin 0018. So
Ooh.
it's been going down the line
Nice.
way before me too. So
Right. Excellent.
yeah.
How old were you when you actually first picked up that guitar?
Gosh, I think I got that guitar in 8th grade, I believe, as a Christmas present. And, of course, I wanted the black Strat or the school bus yellow Jackson like Steve Vai had. And it was one of those situations where it was like, well, my dad had the wherewithal to start me out on an acoustic, which I always like to tell people it's a good way to begin, because then you learn the really mechanics of how to play a guitar without all the bells and whistles. So it was 8th grade, however old you are in 8th grade, 13, 14, something like that.
Okay.
So
that's pretty awesome. And when did you first start thinking about making guitars?
Well, that was a whole thing, because we also had the artistic element in the family too. My mother was always painting and making things, and so I kind of got the best of both worlds in that respect. When I was a kid, they really facilitated that creative side by getting Dremel tools and X-Acto knives and stuff, and so I just sort of had all the elements there to start working on things. And when I decided that I, wanted to play guitar, I got into it, and I had been carving little things all along, and I couldn't or I couldn't afford to buy a guitar when I was out of, I think I graduated from college at this point, and it was just a couple years out. And, first job out of college, wasn't making very much money. And, I decided, well, if I can't buy one, why not just make one? So I bought a guitar body and got out the old Dremel tool and X-Acto knives and started carving faces into it. It was a Warmoth Super Strat style body. And I just kept working on it after my day job, go home, carve on it. And then finally, a few months later, I had this really crazy, just natural wood with these faces carved into it, all intertwined with vines and things like that.
Wow.
And that was the very first one. So, and it actually went to Steve Vai. So kind of crazy to start out at the very top of the mountain.
Yeah, no kidding.
So.
Yeah, so just like sort of a tad. So what actually makes a really good sort of guitar then?
I'm sorry?
What makes a really good guitar?
Wow. So many different, I know it's like there's all these things flood my head, there's so many things that go into it. First you have to have a decent piece of wood, which I've kind of disproven my statement there many times by using odd found objects and things like that. But I think the most important part is to be able to have the correct construction and have it just feel right. There's something to when you pick up a guitar, as I'm sure you guys know, if it feels right, the fret edges are perfectly rounded and the neck is comfortable and it hangs right on you. It's not headstock heavy and simple things like that, which is just amazing. I mean, you picked up guitars where you're like, oh, the frets are garbage or it just buzzes or whatever. So I think that the construction is the most important thing, step one. So
right, agreed.
Yeah,
like I used to work for Fender for a while, right? And
I didn't know that.
Got into the factory. Well, I was in the in-ear monitor section.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, but I also got to come out to California and tour the facilities, right? And there was discussions always about wood and what kind of wood, and where did they source it from, and because there's a lot of woods that you can't get anymore, right? And so some are illegal to import as well, which I didn't know even existed. Yeah. So, like, where do you source your wood from, or should I ask your wife? Oh, no, sorry.
I know, exactly.
Oh, sorry.
Go, buddy. Come and swing it in with your... That's awesome. It's funny because one of the things that I've always liked to do over the years is find really unique wood that has a story behind it or something that normally you wouldn't use. On my everyday models that I make, the flag guitars and things like that, I'll source whatever maples or ash or mahogany. And there's a couple different wood suppliers here in Portland. Fortunately, in the Pacific Northwest, you have insane access to really great figured maple and things of that nature. There's a couple good wood suppliers here that I'll go to that, you know, have really perfectly dried wood, if it's mahogany or ebony or something along those lines.
Right.
But you know, one of the things that I had started with when I really dove in 100% head first, you know, guitar business, that was it. No other side jobs or anything. I had gotten a ton of old black walnut that had blown down on my great uncle's farm in 1989. And Hurricane Hugo blew in 4 hours from the coast and just leveled like 50 or 60 trees. And so he had it lumbered, stored it, it dried out, and it was, you know, I'd never heard of a guitar made of walnut, but the consistency of it, it's dense like maple, but you still get a little bit of that warmth because it's not as dense as maple. So you get kind of that combo of like a little mahogany, sort of those browner tone characteristics, with the punchiness of maple. So plus it had a story. It's like, you know, these trees had been bowled over by a catastrophic storm, and it's like, that's kind of cool. So actually that guitar right over my shoulder right there is made from that walnut. So that was my very first electric guitar with my shape and headstock that I had made, and I made it out of that, which was sort of fitting.
That's beautiful, dude.
Thanks, man.
Awesome. That's fair. It's great. It's a really, really great story. The question is, though, could you in fact make a guitar out of anything?
Oh, for sure. I actually made them out of old skateboard ramp. I made them out of 2x4s from a Coca-Cola pallet. I mean, even it's just nuts, man. Like I find so much crap, and it's just fun, you know. And the one that I have in progress right now, a guy who's just the loveliest guy, from the band Midnight Preachers out of Ireland, Owen, literally chopped down a chestnut tree that he and his grandfather had planted. And I think they sold their family property, and he wanted to get a piece of this and sent me a log. I mean, it was still green and had bark on it. Wow. And I slabbed it up, and I'm making a guitar out of it. And it's like, okay, you know, so, but it's just cool because I've taken pictures of the whole process of stripping the bark off of it, of, you know, literally building like, almost like a sled for my router so I could plane it down and get it really clean. Then I had it kiln dried, and it's gluing up now. And it's such a cool story. It's like, you know, I mean, this may be this guy's favorite guitar ever because of the history of him and his grandfather planting this tree. So, you know, I love stuff like that. So totally. The long answer, you know, as I get a little loquacious, you know, and tend to ramble, but yes, you could pretty much build a guitar out of anything, as long as the construction's there and it's put together properly, and I think you can make it sound pretty good. Slash actually was playing the skateboard ramp guitar, and it had an old oil can that was peeled across the top, so it kind of brightened it up, and he was laughing about how actually sounded pretty good. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool.
So
that's awesome. That's really cool.
Like, what are the pros and cons of using alternate materials? Like, the resonance and stuff has to be a lot different from, you know, a wood guitar versus a metal guitar versus something you make out of scraps. Like, you know, how do you compensate for all that?
A lot of it is pickups. You know, you can, if it's a really dark sounding wood, like you get into the nerdiness of being able to tap on it and ping on it and see how it resonates. And you know, you want something that's going to bring up the bottom end, more of a heavier wound pickup or something along those lines. You know, I don't really know pickups that well, but I use a couple different companies that are very tuned in with that type of technology and how to compensate for those little things. Like, I've got something that's really bright because it has metal on the top and it's maple and it's just almost too bright, and then you do something to darken that up, you know. So mainly electronics, whether it's types of capacitors you use or resistors, that kind of thing, treble bleeds, you know, that kind of stuff. So, which actually it's an ever ongoing learning process. I mean, I pick up something new every single time I pick up and build a guitar. So it's, I love it. It's like you're always in school.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
I love
That's
it.
very cool. About how long sort of does it actually take you to kind of make each like sort of guitar really?
Well, I mean, it varies. On the quick, like I had an example of I have one of the metal guitars, which is made out of old oil cans, which is that guitar right there, and it's
Okay.
old 2-gallon oil can guitars that I peel apart, and then I've recreated those because those are extremely hard to find. It was an old refinery called Stay Cool, probably from the 40s or 50s, something like that. So I have a client in outside of Dallas that he bought one of those and a couple other things. He has one of the flag Telecaster guitars, key style, as I like to call it, so Fender doesn't get their hackles up.
Right.
So he wanted to order one of the Stay Cools as a surprise Christmas gift for his brother. And he called me about 8 days before I would have to ship it to get it there. And I had all the parts. I had already body cut, neck cut, fretboards, the can, metal, everything. So I said, I can send you a plaque and have it engraved and you can give it to him. Because now it's not the same because, I really want him to have this guitar. So I was like, so it was either lose the sale or take the challenge. And I did. And I finished that guitar in about 5 days. So that was I think the fastest I've built a guitar. And that was pushing it. But in the comfort zone, I prefer to give myself a month, just to have enough time for anything that may go sideways or weather for painting, that kind of stuff. So.
Right. So how many guitars do you sell in a year?
On average, I would say around 35, something like that. And I was going to go back to the prior question. I've had guitars that have taken 3 months working every day on them, So and where it's the hand carved stuff. Whether it's I have a client out of New York that bought or commissioned a 1958 Corvette guitar, which is literally shaped like a miniature 1958 Corvette. Sweet. That headlights light up and everything, and the neck comes out of the trunk, and you can play it, And he did that one. That one took every minute of 3 months, So, but I don't really do too many crazy projects like that anymore, just because I'm trying to streamline, productivity because it's just me. So more time I spend on one thing, it takes me away from the other designs, which are a little quicker to get out the door.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever sort of taken an order from like sort of someone and thought, no, I really kind of don't want to do that?
Oh man, you must have been listening in earlier. I'll show you one. I'll take you on a shop tour. I have one on my bench right now, and it's just the client is. I love him to death. He's awesome. He's got one or two of my guitars already, and he's from New Jersey, and he spends about half of his time in Naples, Florida. So he goes down, he's like, I love Naples, I want to do something. I think he has a 62 Corvette. So he had seen the 58 Corvette, and he asked if I could carve one of those. And I threw out the number, which it would be worth the effort of focusing solely on that for 3 months. And it was a pretty pricey, thing. Sure. And he's like, yeah, it's a little beyond my budget. And I'm like, I totally understand, but I need to make sure that things are compensated and for the time it's going to take and take me away from my other design. So we came up with this one design, and it just I was not feeling it. It just was not flowing. And I don't think he was feeling it that great. He goes, it's a good first pass, but let's go back to it. So eventually we scrapped the initial design, which was going to be like an old 50s style postcard, which incorporated part of a carved 62 Corvette and some beach elements and all of this. It was just too hodgepodge.
Right.
There was no continuity through the design. So we came back to it, and we decided to. He sent me basically a brick of sand from Naples Beach, which looked like the kilo of Coke that came in the mail. So I was like, it's gonna be ridiculous. So, not that I've ever seen a kilo of Coke except on Narcos or something on Netflix,
Right,
So,
right.
but he, ridiculous. So I opened this thing up. I sift out all the, little sticks and crap and everything. So we had come up with a concept of putting sand over the top of the guitar. And then he loves the Stay Cool design, which actually has a little light up box in there. It says keeps the motor cool. But he wanted to do something with the sun. So I'm like, all right. So I love this process of how we as humans do this. You think of something, you're like, there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to do this. And you sleep on it and your subconscious goes to work. Then you wake up the next day and you're like, that's how I'm going to do it. So
exactly.
I figured out that if I got orange plexiglass and glued it together and stacked it up and made a little sun, it looks like it's popping through the sand. And then I'll backlight that with super bright LEDs, and it'll be on a push-pull pot on the tone knob, and it runs off a 9-volt battery. So you pull that, so you got the sun coming out of the sand. So, all right, so I'm there. I've already hit that milestone where I'm like, okay, we're going with this.
Right.
And I'm like, what are we going to do? We had decided we were going to do some of the, if you've seen the epoxy wave art, if you're looking down on wave. So I'm doing that next. And then it's going to have Naples in like distressed metal, like it's kind of coming out of the sand. So it's sort of a little kitschy, not in my normal realm of style of building. So I didn't want to do it at first, but as I got into it, it was almost more of a challenge. And if I can conquer that and do that, then I'm like, let's do it. So I'm really excited about it now, though.
That's great. Along. Well, it's amazing what sleep will do, right?
Seriously, man. Well,
I know.
Exactly.
So you moved from LA to Portland. Did that make any difference in your product at all?
No, it actually has gotten, I feel like it's gotten better. And I don't attribute that to location. I attribute that to just, like I said, I learn something new every day, and I feel like I get better and better and better at what I do. I'm just same thing with you guys. It's like you build your sort of automatic process of doing something, but then you keep doing little things with it. The humidity, at first I thought might be a concern, but I haven't had any issues whatsoever. One thing I will say is the cold is a little challenging because painting, like my paint booth is, in a garage, and I built a full-on paint booth with filters and everything. But it takes so much to heat it up, and as soon as you turn on the fan to pull the overspray and the fumes into, you're pulling in cold air from outside. So
that's right.
One good thing about that for me is 99.9% of my guitars are distress finish. So
perfect.
If you get some sort of, and it works brilliantly with nitrocellulose, because if you spray nitrocellulose, it cures, and then if it's in cold weather, it crackles and it looks like it's 70 years old. So that actually works in my favor in the winter. So summers, it usually doesn't get too hot, but this past summer I got up to 117 degrees here. So
holy smoke.
It was a little nuts, man. It was pretty brutal. So thank God for AC.
Sounds it. Have you managed to maintain your client base kind of post move?
Oh, for sure. And that's one of the things that I love about the trajectory of how it's gone for me over the years. When I first was in North Carolina, I mean, I would weasel my way backstage at every show that came through. I mean, from club shows to venues, and this is before cell phones, I would have all the production office numbers, and I would just call it up and tell them who I was. And a lot of times, you get a message to the guitar tech or production manager, and they're like, all right, well, we'll ask the band and see if they're interested in seeing something. And so, as you guys know, a lot of bands, there's not a lot going on when they're on the road. So they're like, yeah, why not? So I would go down and then take guitars, and either they would be into it or they would not be into it, but it would be a conversation, and, met tons of people like that. In particular, one of the first, Toby, as you know, Alice in Chains, when they came through on the Dirt tour. So, I had been, as I said, my first guitar went to Steve Vai. So I show up, Mark Lanigan gets me tickets for the show. I go and I show Lane Staley some guitars. I think Jerry had actually cut his hand, his left hand, the palm on a Gatorade bottle that day. So he was at the hospital getting stitches.
Okay.
And so I brought this second guitar that I had made, and Lane saw it, Mike Starr saw it, and Mike ended up buying it later that night for $200. And then Jerry, Jerry's like, I know, it's crazy. I was like, wow, from the humble beginnings.
Exactly.
And so Jerry, he asked who I had made guitars for, and I said, well, Steve Vai has my first one. So immediate legitimacy right there.
Sure.
So Jerry commissions me to do one, and I think it was like $500 or something. So I carved him one, which is the one you've seen.
Right.
And so through the years, I've kept building up names like that, and not necessarily for any particular reason. I just love to go to shows, and I would follow after my favorite musicians and bands. And inevitably, they would buy stuff. Vernon Reid from Living Colour bought one, and then Korn bought a couple. And that's where I met you, Toby, was when you were producing Follow the Leader.
That's right.
And I had met them a few months before that in Charlotte before I moved to LA, and then reconnected with them at NRG when you were there working on the record with them. And they commissioned 2 guitars. So throughout the years, I've built up this clientele of known guys. And it just, once you have that value of, well, if this guy's got one, it must be good. So it's either I've pulled the greatest hat trick in the world, or I actually make a pretty good guitar, So I was able to, once you have that stable of high profile clients, you can kind of go anywhere, and especially with internet, social media. And one of the interesting things I've found about here in Portland is, in LA, it is impossible to get to some of these musicians at a show. And here, somebody comes through and they're like, "Hey, you coming down tonight?" Like last night, I went to see Slash. He played it. They opened their tour here, which was great. And I took the kid and my younger son, and we just had a blast. And so, it's worked out so perfectly. Awesome. You don't have the hustle and bustle of being in Los Angeles, and it's a little slower here, and it's just been really cool. So I long way of saying it, but no, it has not suffered change in locale. You don't have the access to getting in the studios quite as much, but that hasn't really been a big factor.
I have some friends up there, then Dean Castronovo and his son Kyle. You know who Dean is, right?
Of course. I met him. I actually met him at the Korn show when they came through here in February of 2020. Okay. And he was down. I introduced myself to him, and he grew up with one of my really good friends, Kelly Lemieux, who's the bass player for Buck Cherry in Salem, Oregon. So, Kelly and I have an AC/DC tribute band, sort of more Bond era, which I sing in. I don't play guitar because Doug Rappaport is the lead guitar player, and you don't pick up a guitar when Doug's around. So unless you can hang. So, but that's how I had met Dean, and just such a great guy, man. And what a talent. I mean, vocals and drums.
I know.
Come on.
And his son Kyle is sick as well. I produced a record with Kyle, and man, oh man, I love all that, that stuff that he's into is more of the alternative gothy type, stuff, but and very industrial, which I love,
Well, that's awesome.
We had a blast doing that, and we're going to do another one.
Did you record here or down there?
Yeah, no, I recorded at his house up there.
Oh, no kidding.
And
cool.
So, it was a lot of fun, And
well, if you do it, you got to let me know, and I'd love you to come up and hang out, So.
Absolutely, and maybe even sing a track or two. I know you're a pretty good singer. I've heard.
Twist my arm.
That's enough. Ow, ow,
twist my arm. Twist my arm.
Well, I know you do like tours of your production facility, right? Is there any way we can get a tour from My Right Stuff?
Yeah, man. Of course. I'll make you guys suffer through that.
Okay. Are we ready to do that?
Yeah, we can do that. Let me get the camera
Certainly
here, and I'll kind of take you around and show you some stuff here and see what you think. All right.
So we're going to take you on a little tour of the shop and the studio and show you some of the stuff we've been talking about. So, Toby, as you know, this is the style that I started out with, like a carved guitar. And this was my very first personal guitar that I did for myself. And I think this was right after I built the one for Jerry Cantrell. So this is a mahogany slab that I bandsawed out and then carved. And you can see I love carving hands. And so I wanted this sort of evolution of like birth to death. And this is a hand holding an egg, and then over here is a hand holding a skull representing death. And you have this sun, which gives life, and then down here is earth to earth, ashes to ashes, with the vines coming out of the rays of the mouth, or the mouth, and wrapping around the rays of the sun. So just a simple super strat style guitar. And I, of course, would take this to every show that I would sneak backstage at, and have all these different guys sign it for me, like Steve Vai and Lenny Kravitz and Steve Morse, and just tons and tons of people. So this is a super nostalgic guitar to me. So then I went on to start making metal top guitars eventually, and we'll get into that in a second. But some of the ones that I had done was I finally came up with my own shape, which this is one of the larger body sizes. This is what I call the SM2. And it's this one's a maple cap with a tone chambered mahogany body and a set 3-piece mahogany neck. So this one is an interesting piece. This is Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols, and he has a radio show in Los Angeles called Jonesy's Jukebox. It's been on a couple different stations. So I got the idea of reaching out to Steve one day and seeing if he would be interested in doing like a series with his signature on it. And he had been watching the show The Sopranos, so he came up with this idea of doing sort of a general Napoleonic kind of figure. I think Tony Soprano had bought a racehorse, so General Jonesy wanted to have that sort of imagery. So I superimposed his head on the iconic Napoleon painting and put that in front of a ship that was on fire and being fired upon by a cannon shooting a soccer ball. So you can see here it says Her Majesty's Service Chelsea FC for Chelsea Football Club, and some of his other things. There's Pie and Mash headquarters, and which is somewhere around in here, and then his King George flag that says "The Man Who Can," which is one of his catchphrases. And of course, the inlays are mother of pearl of the Queen of England head off of one of their pieces of currency. So anyway, so this is sort of that with that yellowed kind of finish. So that was a cool one, and Steve and I are still, you know, we catch up every now and then and see how things are going. So this one is one that sort of stemmed, and the evolution was going from the carved things into carved and painted. So this is a hot rod metal flake walnut body and walnut neck. Now this walnut came from Hurricane Hugo in North Carolina, came in '89 and blew down about 50 black walnut trees on my great uncle's farm. So I love to use woods that have, you know, a story behind it, and you just give it a new life once you put it into something like a functional guitar. So these flames are hand carved, and then this is hot rod metal flake paint. My buddy Donnie Baird in North Hollywood, California, is just a master painter. So he did this one and he taught me how to do it, and I've done a couple since, but this one is a pinstriped, you know, the candy on it, and he has a 1960 Buick Invicta painted exactly like this. So that was a pretty cool piece, and I call this one the Flame for obvious reasons. So this one is a bolt-on. So you know, the evolution went into different types of carving. Here's another one that was after I had built the guitar for Jerry, and this is another carved one, which is all one piece. I just love carving hands, and so you can see how that's all 3D in there. And again, bolt-on neck, and just pretty simple. So that one, and then you have the evolution into the metal work. So this guitar is called the Stay Cooler. Actually getting this one ready to go out on the road with Phil X and Bon Jovi, and so I'm putting some new strings on it and getting it set up and everything. This is an old oil can, and you can see over here on the shelf, this is the old 1940s oil, motor oil. So I'll get those cans and I'll peel them apart and laminate them to the top of the guitar. And of course, you know, just having a plain metal top is not good enough for me. So I wanted to make a light box, which came at the suggestion of my buddy Dalton Grant in LA. And we, you know, worked on music together, and he's looking at this and he's like, man, you should make that light up. So there we have, keeps the motor cool, and it does nothing but light up and look cool. So hex bolts that are hacksawed in half and inlaid, which was a royal pain in the ass, but it gets the desired effect. Lug nuts for volume knobs, and this is a tone chambered mahogany body and a 3-piece mahogany neck. So there you go. So that was a fun one to do, and I've been recreating those in different colors too. So I'll screen print the metal and to show different kinds of colors, but it's the exact same representation of the original can. So this one's an interesting one. This is my very first bass that I'm doing, which is called the Black Flag for obvious reasons. So this is a solid mahogany body and a 3-piece maple neck bolt-on in the style of a P bass. I'm going to do some jazz bass and other various things, but you can see the aluminum binding, which is pretty standard on all the guitars now. And it just adds a cool element where it not only looks cool, but I feel that it transfers more vibration down the fretboard into the body with all that metal. So, and I did little red accents in there too, and the aluminum star inlays. But this is a thin sheet of aircraft aluminum that is laminated to the top, and these are sterling silver skull stars. And you can see the gear knobs. And I'll take you into the other part of the shop in a minute and show you how these things were made. So not only that, but you also have it in guitar form too. So this is the SM1, the smaller body that I do. And so same setup, except with humbucker pickups that are split coil, volume, tone, the aluminum binding and all that, and cool little truss rod cover. So yeah, nitrocellulose finish, so you get that nice crackle finish and looks like it's, 70 years old, which is a lot of fun. So we'll hang this one back up and I'll take you to the next one. This design is also called the Black Flag for the guitar and the bass, and it is sort of a spin-off from the regular flag, which is red, white, and blue. This one is an interesting piece. This is only one of its kind. I had started experimenting with trying to get some things chrome plated, and I went to a guy in California and asked if he could chrome plate wood, and he said, I don't know, let's try it. So I made the guitar, solid mahogany body, 3-piece mahogany neck, set it in, maple fretboard, and then clear coated it, and he was able to get an electric charge to go through this so that he could dip it in copper coating and then rhodium plate it. So this is just such a trippy piece, and the whole fretboard is also chrome plated, so it looks like a spaceship, which originally I did this because I was trying to speed up the process of doing the flags, and I was just going to paint over this and distress it, but it looked so bitchin' that I just decided to keep it as is. But same thing, same standard setup, split coil humbuckers and a tone. So there you go. This one I did in conjunction with K&B Effects that does all the special effects for Walking Dead, and Scott Ian was the sort of the center of this project. He's a huge horror fan, and so I linked up with him in Los Angeles, and then he hooked us up with Greg Nicotero, who owns K&B Effects and also has, directed almost all the Walking Dead episodes. So Greg and I have become buddies, and Greg actually has a Tele-style Black Flag. But this one, I got this wood is from support beams from a historic home in Hancock Park in Los Angeles. So a friend of mine asked me if I wanted these. I'm like, yeah, sure. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I decided taking something like that and giving it another life would be a cool concept. So I made this body, buried it in the ground for about 2 weeks and watered it, pulled it up out of the ground, and the zombie comes back to life. So this is all prosthetic plastic ribs from the Night of the Living Dead set. Greg had given me a bunch of stuff. So if you can see here, this is grass and dirt from the original gravesite plot of Night of the Living Dead, the opening scene where the zombie comes out and gets Barbara. And so I got all this stuff. This is old rusted metal from the chapel, And then this is the binding on this is wood from the chapel with nails, and I just wanted to make a creepy looking zombie guitar. I mixed 2-part epoxy with wood dust that I had stained red to give it that kind of gross guts looking thing. And of course, to make it super authentic, I actually bit into a piece of cardboard and transferred my teeth marks into the guitar. So it's like, of course, you get bit by a zombie, you turn into a zombie. So the zombie guitar. All right, let's go here. This is our cool little jam room studio area, which we have some fun in. So all these things are hanging here. You can grab a guitar and just kind of rock out on it. This is the one we call the Model T, which is I call this one Red, White, and Bullets because it has the stars with the bullet shells, and of course super telly style with the split coil humbucker in the neck, 1 volume, and of course the bullet shell toggle switch. Pretty standard. But this goes on the wall mount, which is reclaimed wood, and then so it's just kind of like an art piece. Hang your guitar on it, and it just looks like something that you would want to hang in your living room. So, look, I like to have art too that has meaning behind it. So most of the art in our house and studio and workshop is from people that either we know the artist or we know the photographer, or it has some kind of connection. So this is one of my favorite pieces. This is Hendrix from the Monterey Pop Festival, I believe. And Jim Marshall took that. Jim had given me this years ago. I was bartending in LA, and he was one of my buddies that would come in town, and he would sit and we would talk, and I would talk about the guitars. He's like, "Hey kid, come over to the hotel tomorrow. I got something for you." So he gives me this matted, printed black and white picture of Jimi Hendrix signed by Jim Marshall. So that's one of my favorite pieces that I've ever received. This is Ozzy from, obviously, and one of my very, very dear friends, Dean Carr, who has directed a bunch of videos for Ozzy and Marilyn Manson, Velvet Revolver, on and on and on. It's just an incredible artist. And so he gifted me this, and we had done a couple little things together. So it was sort of a here, thank you. And so I picked that one out and loved it. This is, of course, the master Limikillmeister. And this is Kevin Estrada, a good friend of mine in Los Angeles, also a phenomenal photographer who took that shot. On over to this one. This is sheet music from the 1800s. And so I became friends with a guy on Instagram who he discovered his ability to draw in ink, just no template or anything. And of course, he knows my love for AC/DC. So he sent me this. His name's Tom Sullivan. And the guy is just a master artist. And it just blows me away that he just started doing this in his 40s and has created some of the most incredible pen and ink drawings I've ever seen. So, of course, here have the 20th anniversary of Appetite for Destruction. So, of course, my buddy Slash signed that one for me. And then this is a gift that my buddy gave me for my birthday of Angus, who is just awesome, my buddy Daniel Eels. And so this one is actually a photograph on aluminum, and this is by Dustin Jack, taken on the farewell Motley Crue tour before they decided to start touring again, which is awesome. And Dustin is an incredible photographer, and so I actually met Dustin through Tommy. Tommy and I've known each other for years, and he was telling me about his friend who shoots all these guitars and is an amazing photographer. So I got this print from Dustin, and of course had both Tommy and Dustin sign it for me. So that's one of my favorite pieces. So let's go in here to the other part of the workshop, and I'll show you what happens in here. So this is where some of the the sanding and the assembly and things like that get done. It's not not too much really big dirty work, but right now I'm working on a full-size 2-foot by 4-foot wall mount for one of the larger body guitars, and you can see I just kind of lay everything out so that I'll have it ready to go and can kind of just build as things progress along. My workshop space over here, indoors, lots of tools. It's really messy right now because I'm in the middle of the project of this flag, but it gets cleaned up after I finish each one. So this is where all the wax stuff gets done. I'll carve a masterpiece, master being the first piece that it gets turned into a solid piece out of the wax. So I'll carve the wax, that gets cast in copper, and then my buddy down in Los Angeles, LaRouche, will make these vulcanized rubber molds. And you can see, you do this is pressurized wax, you shoot the wax into it, and then you pop these pieces out like this. I'll send them to my buddy Greg. He will cast them out of either sterling silver or brass, bronze, copper, whatever. So we'll go over here and I'll show you this. This is a lot of the original pieces. So you can see this will get cast out of copper, and then that way I'll have the original and I can make modifications to it, different picks that I do, you can see there. And these are super fun. Actually, having these carved, I turn them into pendants where you can wear them as jewelry, or you can actually play with them. It's really cool because they give a real percussiveness when you play if you've never played with a metal pick. So that's kind of cool. And I started doing skull rings, which is a lot of fun. So I did this one real simple so that I can add things to it, like a lightning bolt or a star, or I'm doing a couple of custom ones for a client of mine in San Diego for him and his son. Their favorite number is 13, and so I'm going to do a little brass 13 that goes on there. So that'll be fun. So you can see, got the picks cast out of, these are white bronze, but I'll do them out of sterling silver too. So that's a lot of fun. And parts, this is just my little indoor workspace. So let's go out to the garage shop and I'll show you how things work out there. Which is nice because I'm just a short step away from actually getting outside, and you go out to a lovely backyard that's come on, Ozzy. We got my my security systems here. So, this is kind of nice to step outside, and when it's warm out, you can have a nice little lunch outside, take a break from all the guitar stuff. And I'll show you how to kind of customize this little area too. Of course, you got to do your own grill. So my family and I, during COVID, we actually built this grill area, and I learned how to do concrete countertops. I put concrete countertops, and of course with McSwain inlaid in it out of aluminum. So that's, So over here, of course, I had to customize my grill handle, and you have the bullet stars on the grill handle, which is, of course, McSwain Guitars. So let's go in here and I'll show you the rest of the shop. So here's where the dirty work happens. A lot of routing, sawing, grinding, all that kind of stuff. So I have it pretty decently set up in here. So here I've got my little paint booth, and I can catch all the overspray and fumes and stuff like that. So it works out pretty good. And that's about it, man. That's my little McSwain Guitars world, and I get a lot done out of this little small compact space. So there you go.
That was an amazing tour. Thank you. Like, what's your biggest passion? Like, I know you play guitar, I know you sing, you're an amazing luthier, as we've seen, man. And God, so where's the hierarchy?
Well, I tell you, there definitely is a hierarchy. Just from a strict sense of enjoyment and just absolute unadulterated fun, is got to be singing. Like, that's when I'm just beside myself. I can't get enough of it. So,
cool.
Of course, with the AC/DC thing, I have another cult tribute band that I sing in, and then have done some, online pandemic jams with people, and it's just, I just love it, man. I was raised as I actually trained in high school as a first tenor, like singing classical music, and went to college, and then was going to sing in the college choral program, and then started a band and realized I could get free beer and sing rock and roll. So, started doing that, and had just a lot of fun, all through all 4 years of college. And it's just all so serendipitous. One of my best friends from college is my business partner, a guy named Steve Hall, who lives on Bainbridge Island up in the Seattle area. And he's just such a great guy. But he played guitar in the college band that we had. And so, we've maintained a friendship, and then have continued to carry that love for music on. And he's an insane musician himself. So we've done some things together as of late where, we'll work on some projects and play together. We did a thing where we actually played our first gig together in years at he had a 50th birthday party. So we did like an acoustic set, which was a lot of fun.
Cool.
But so I would say the singing, the music part of it is the most fun thing that I just absolutely love to do. And then, I don't play as much guitar anymore. I've gotten really rusty, which is just a crying shame. But, when I have my hands on guitars all day long, it's kind of the last thing I want to do is go pick up a guitar and
Amen.
play. But I've been kind of getting back
sense.
into it and just sort of getting the itch to play a little bit more. But I swear it's, and I'm not talking about, I don't like guitars as much as singing, but, just from a fun standpoint. But man, I just feel so fortunate. I get to do what I love to do every day. I get to go in there and be creative and build and have turned it into a nice little job, and I've been doing it for 23, 24 years, almost 25, something like that.
Okay.
Which is just insane. Like when I made that first leap, I had left my job at a company selling steel. I had gotten an order at the NAMM show, which I'm sure you guys know, the National Association of Music Merchants.
Sure.
A Japanese distribution company had bought 10 guitars, which was more than my year's salary. I was like, I'm going to do the smart thing and invest this and continue to work. And then, I hated that job, and my sales manager was like, listen, we got to get your sales up. You're in jeopardy of possibly losing your job. And I'm like, you know what? I'm out.
Right.
Peace out. See you later.
Peace.
So I literally decided at that moment, I left that job. And then they're like, oh, we don't want you to quit. And I'm like, I'm done. Yeah, you just made my mind up for me. And I said, if I don't take this chance and do this now, I will regret it for the rest of my life. And I never look back.
Perfect.
Granted, had to supplement with some bartending gigs and things like that. But I swear the mainstay has been guitars the whole time.
That's great.
And I just feel super fortunate for my kids get to see me do it, because I've got my shop at my house. And my kids have been around it their entire lives. And they're like, my wife and I joke that I think for their lives, they're 15 and 17. They think that I don't have a job.
Right. Of course.
I'm dressed in a t-shirt and jeans or flip flops and shorts, and so they're like, I don't think he works, And so I think they're starting to understand now, and my 17-year-old Jude, I remember I had about 6 guitars in my workshop, all in different states. And he's like, Dad, how much you selling these for? And I told him, and I could see the light bulb go off, and he kind of walked away, came back the next day. He goes, hey, I think I want to build a guitar. I was like, that little son of a bitch wants to sell it out from under me.
Or just take over the business, as you age.
Seriously.
No,
I know. That'd be a dream. I mean, I would love that.
Can actually retire.
Yeah, seriously. I don't know what that means.
Later.
My 15-year-old Gunner, he's just an amazingly talented drummer, and he's learning bass, and he's been doing school of rock classes, which is just insane how cool that program is.
Oh yeah.
But so we'll jam together periodically, and we're trying to work on a little pandemic jam surprise at some point here in the next couple months.
Sweet.
But it's just I feel fortunate, man. I get to do what I love to do, So
right. Well, I'd love to host your pandemic jam here on My Right Stuff. That would be fun.
Oh man, dude, that'd be cool. All right,
totally.
all right.
Yeah, that'd be lots of fun.
We'll have a date.
We'll get it down in. Awesome.
Do you have any kind of bucket list artists that you would either like to play with or actually kind of make some sort of instruments for?
Man, of course, I've always had my bucket list, and I've ticked off a lot of those guys. Slash. I mean, of course, he's just insane.
Sure.
Such an amazing talent, and what a cool guy. I mean, you know him, Toby, and he's just such a genuine dude. And I mean, I'm nobody. It's all of a sudden he has been so kind to me over the years, and just always supported my business, and has a couple of my guitars. And I mean, when you get any guitar in the world, and he's actually bought guitars from me, which is just unthinkable.
Bonkers.
Yeah, it's crazy. Of course, I would love to have Angus Young, get something. I mean, he's just I think he's my penultimate favorite player.
Awesome.
But have a nice little sidebar. I'd always wanted to do something for Eddie Van Halen, you know, God rest his soul.
Right.
But that was a tough blow because Eddie was probably one of the main reasons that I went head first off the cliff into rock and roll, as I'm sure many of our age have done. But but I was, when I lived in Los Angeles, I lived in the San Fernando Valley, and he, you know, had the 5150 studios at his house on Coldwater Canyon.
Right.
So the boys are, you know, little, and we would go to the bookstore all the time. So there was a store called Bookstar on the corner of Laurel Canyon and Ventura Boulevard.
Oh yeah.
And it was an old theater that they turned into. Yeah, I'm sure you know.
Yep.
So I'm walking in, I'm herding the kids in. My wife goes in and walk in, and boom, there's Eddie Van Halen leaning up against a book shelf, waiting on his wife. And I'm like, you know, and I don't really get starstruck and kind of try to maintain my cool, but it's Eddie Van Halen.
Right. Exactly.
I look at him, I'm like,
totally.
boys, say hello to Mr. Van
Totally.
Halen. He's like, he's real quiet. He's like, hi, how you doing? Nice to meet you. I'm like, I said, I know you probably get this all the time. I said, a huge fan. I said, I would love to build something for you if you're ever interested, and gave him my card. And he's like, oh, thank you. And then that was it. And then I left. So
Right.
I did get to meet him. Super nice, and
excellent.
just kind of left it at that. So, but,
Right.
You know, but yeah, I think Angus would probably be my top guy. So
That's awesome. Well, what's next for McSwain Guitars, and how can our viewers find out more about, you know, you and the great guitars and where you're singing and, you know, all that?
Well, I'm, of course, pretty present on social media. I try to be diligent about posting stuff every day, and you know, kind of same across the platforms. Instagram is McSwain Guitars, same with Facebook.
Cool.
But I'll post things with some links and things like that to the website. My website is McSwainGuitars.com.
Okay.
And you know, everything's offered on there. You can click to buy, and then you know, I need to update it. It says a year wait list, which it's now down to about a few months, because pandemic, all I did was just build.
Sure.
Clicked off and kind of whittled down the backlog. But what's next is, you know, I tell you, I want to try to diversify as much as I possibly can, and you know, utilize singing and things like that. So one of the things I've started kind of floating some lines into the water of is voiceover, singing voiceover.
Oh, nice.
For television, commercial, film, whatever.
Nice.
And it's such an elusive business to get into.
Yep.
And so I have a really good friend, actually, who's a client also, Greg Wells.
Oh, yeah.
Who produced Katy Perry and, you know, Casey Musgrave and tons, and, you know, Oscar winner for The Greatest Showman with Hugh Jackman. So I had asked Greg, I said, hey, man, do you know anybody who's in this business? Because it just escapes me, and everybody I know, nobody knows. And he said, I tell you what, if you'll put together like a 30-second to a minute clip of you doing your best stuff, different styles, I'll post it up on Instagram. I've got, you know, 30-something thousand followers. There's got to be somebody in there. So he was so awesome to do that. He put it up on his Instagram, and I got a message from Music House that has offices all over the world. He flew it up the flagpole with some of his bosses, and they dug it. And so they said they're going to use me, but, you know, we'll see. So that's one of the big things that I think, because, you know, now, and I'm sure you guys hate to hear this, being, you know, amazing professionals and have your studios, but especially with home studios, you know, the bar of entry is very low. And you can actually get things dialed in. So I've got my, you know, Shure SM7B and my Apollo Twin and Logic Pro X, which I'm clunking through and trying to learn how to use, but I've got a pretty decent little setup down here. So
cool.
Yeah, why not? So that's one of the things outside of, it's not really guitar related.
Oh, well done.
But,
good for you.
Thanks. So, but you know, the skull rings and things like that, little accessories that are not everybody, you know, including myself, are willing to or are able to pull out a wad of cash and buy a guitar. So you know, I'm trying to do little extras like in the accessories, and on the website, there's an accessories page where you can get a skull ring or you can get a pendant or whatever. And so, you know, just try to diversify a little bit, get a little more things out there that would be, you know, appealing to somebody who digs my style of work. Right.
I have one question before we have the last question. Have you ever made an acoustic guitar?
That is a question I just answered 2 days ago. No, it's such a different animal, with the bracing and the box. One of the things that I did as an experiment, which I have vowed to finish this year, is I bought a couple of kit guitars that were, I think they're laminate size, but really nice. So I took the neck off, cut the headstock off, put my own headstock on it as a scarf joint, which, instead of a single piece, it's glued in, and it's a very common way of building necks.
Right.
And then what I want to do is literally shave the top off of the sound box and put a piece of 080 thick aluminum plate on the top of it and rivet it to it. So it'll still have that style that I do. I have no idea what it's going to sound like. It could be garbage, but you would have the wooden box that would breathe and move, and then that more rigid top that may actually be more projective. So it wouldn't require bracing because it's a solid aluminum top and it's super light. So you wouldn't have to worry about, breaking your back. But I want to do that and see how it turns out. So you'd have sort of an industrial looking acoustic guitar. So we'll see.
I'd like to check that one out for sure.
Yes.
All right. Well, you'll first on my list.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah. There's usually a question that we actually like to finish with, and that is, of course, we've actually been witness to your sort of incredible talents. But do you have any hidden talents, or indeed superpowers that are not kind of general knowledge?
Fire breathing.
Ooh.
No.
Fire breathing.
No. I've always wanted to. Ever since I saw Kiss, I was like,
oh yeah,
I want to try that.
Yep. Just tastes like shit.
Nothing. Yeah, I know. Exactly. No, I mean, I love to cook. Barbecue is one of my favorite things to do, which, the actual smoking barbecue, as you saw the grill.
Yeah, you got the big green egg.
Been put through its paces. Yeah. Oh, man, and I use it all the time. But my North Carolina roots, I'm always, wanting to do pulled pork or ribs or something like that. So I'd love to hook up with Dave Grohl and give him a little barbecue off one of these days. Dave Grohl does his own barbecue. I'm like, I got you. I'll take you in a fight. Come on.
I'm an eater, so I want to be there too.
It's good, man. We'll belly up to the old McSwain concrete bar and have some barbecue when you're here.
Sounds perfect. Well, damn, Stephen, this has been like an amped up and an informative episode, and I really enjoyed all the info, the wisdom, and the stories that you shared.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for taking us on a tour of the production facility, and it was fun and exciting.
Yeah.
And thanks for taking the time to be part of this episode of My Right Stuff.
Well, dude, I can't thank you guys enough. I'm flattered that you would want to have me prattle on and on about my nonsense over here. What's going on?
Oh, it's beautiful.
But thank you. And it's so great. I'm so glad that we reconnected.
Really
and thank
good.
you. Appreciate it. So
my pleasure.
Stephen, it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you, to actually kind of see your craft, to actually kind of see the inner workings of your sanctuary almost. I just wanted to say thank you very, very much.
Thank you,
and to our kind of beautiful viewers, no star, good night, take care, and we'll catch you next time.
Buddy. Take care,
Stephen.
guys.
Thank you very much.
And I'm your host, Lord Rage Wright, and this has been another informative and very, very fun musical and mechanical episode of My Right Stuff. Remember to listen loud, play hard, and keep reaching for your dreams. Thanks for watching. Good night.
Do you suffer from insomnia, depression, or anxiety? Well, our sponsor, TAUMMHOMS, may be able to help you in these areas. TAUMMHOMS, a natural sleep and sound healing portal, helping people globally get to sleep faster and stay asleep for longer, and you can find this piece of gold at www.taumms.com. That's www.taummmhoms.com. Most of all, I'd like to thank all of you beautiful people who stream, download, watch, and support My Right Stuff. And please keep spreading the word, because we really, really appreciate it. Also, we now have a My Right Stuff store where you can pick up some lovely snazzy merch for those beautiful bodies. Just go to myrightstuff.com and click on the store tab. And don't forget to tag us in any photos of the merch so we can include you in a future episode. Please also be sure to subscribe to the podcast channel of your choice, as well as our YouTube channel. Toby says it'll give you 10 years good luck. I'm not so sure. I think it's maybe more. This has been another amazing episode of My Right Stuff, and please be sure to tune in this week, next week, and every week for yet another adventurous and informative show. I'm your co-host, Sir Gareth Dighton, and thank you, my lovelies, for tuning in. No star, you beautiful people, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for watching My Right Stuff. This episode was brought to you by TAUMMHOMS, a natural sleep and sound healing portal available globally at www.taumms.com. That's www.taummmhoms.com.